Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Right to Repair bill. This video was prompted by someone in my comments about a week or so ago who asked me what my opinion on the right to repair was. I'm not really accustomed to doing these videos, so this might wander around a bit, so let's just see where this goes. So the Right to Repair bill is a bit of legislation that they're trying to push through in certain states in America, a couple of other countries. I think there's an EU version of it, but not 100% certain. But the gist of it is that it would require manufacturers of large electronics, of large white goods, so dishwashers, etc., and of farming machinery, cars, people like that, large manufacturers of goods, to make available the means to repair their products. So by the means to repair their products, I'm talking like schematics where necessary, and the resources such as any software that is required to fix them. Or for example, if the device contains proprietary connectors or screws, they should make available those connectors or screws for sale, for example. So basically it's to make stuff repairable, because as we all know, there is a massive issue with not only throwaway society, but also nowadays very expensive equipment that if it breaks, you're basically screwed. Like for example, a brand new iPhone, if you buy a high-end iPhone, that's going to cost you somewhere between like £600 and £1,000. And this is something that you carry around in your hand. And if you drop it into a puddle and it smashes the screen, the water gets in and damages it, that's it, it's dead, game over. Apple will just turn around and go, no, that we can't fix that. And you've got to buy a new one for £1,000 kind of thing. So it's kind of a problem. And this also stems to the fact that independent repair shops, like myself, there are certain things which we just simply cannot do. There are certain things which we cannot fix. We know exactly how to fix them, but we can't fix them because either the parts or the software or the resources are just simply not available to us. So a really good example of this is on Apple MacBook Pros. If the GPU fails on those, you have pretty much had it, because you cannot buy replacement GPUs. Go and talk to Lewis Rossman about that, and he'll tell you all about the GPUs and how well that went. So certain parts you just simply cannot get, which means that a repair that is theoretically possible with the right equipment and skills is in reality not possible because you can't get the parts. So that's what it's all about. Now, why is there even a discussion about this? You would imagine of course we should be able to repair stuff. Well, the issue is this stems to really far-reaching places. Like in the lobbying in America to get this bill pushed through, there's a lot of deals with it regarding farm machinery, like tractors and stuff like that. For example, modern John Deere tractors, highly mechanized now, highly computerized. And if, let's say, a part on the tractor fails, you can, the owner of the tractor, he can go out to a place, he can buy the spare parts, he can fit them himself. But the tractor's computer that said this part has failed will refuse to acknowledge that it has been fixed until an official John Deere engineer has come out with his PDA, plugged it in, and said, you're okay now. The part can be fixed and it can be absolutely cool, but the actual unlock thing, the little key that says this tractor will now function, you got to have an official guy come and give that to you. So that is why this causes a problem for people. Why is this the case? Well, as far as the manufacturers are concerned, there's a couple of reasons why they want to do it this way. Is that number one, they're making money fixing their parts themselves. So, Apple will fix your iPhone for you. So why should Apple provide any means to allow other people to compete with them? Why should they be forced to provide the parts and the resources for a competing shop to take away their revenue stream of repairing the phone? And in addition to that, there's other sort of debatable things, such as if a third party agent botches the repair, then the device could be even more broken, or in the case of something like a tractor, it could become dangerous. So there's lots of arguments for and against it, and a lot of this stems down to the ideas of safety, of intellectual property. Who owns the design, who owns the engineering, and also just simply profit, capitalism, basically. So do I think that this should be a thing? Do I think the right to repair should go through? Well, I would like the right to repair to be a thing, just as someone who repairs things. And also, I want it to be more acceptable to repair things. Because the problem is that if we use Apple and iPhones as an example, the issue is that Apple say, yeah, we repair iPhones and stuff like that. But the reality is that they don't. Because as soon as there is anything like vaguely challenging wrong with the phone, they will just simply say, no, this is not repairable. Or failing that, the vast majority of repairs, like if it's a broken screen or something like that, they're just going to turn around and go, oh no, you have to pay for a refurb phone instead. They don't actually do the repair. Now, the broken phone might get sent off and repaired, and then that becomes someone else's refurb phone. But by and large, they don't actually fix your product. And so for starters, the anti-competitive thing is kind of shaky straight away, because most of the time the official manufacturers don't actually do the repair, or they charge such a ridiculous amount of money for the repair that it's entirely daft. So, for example, I had a MacBook Pro Retina in a couple of weeks ago that had a sensor failure in it due to liquid damage. Apple had said that it needed a new logic board and a new SSD. Now, for starters, there was nothing wrong with the SSD at all. I plugged the SSD into another MacBook and it started up. And then the logic board, that had liquid damage corrosion in just a couple of key locations that was preventing it from working properly. Once I cleared that up, the laptop was fine. Apple had quoted this guy like £700 or £800 for the repair, and I did it for less than 100 because it was a simple job. So that's the issue with the anti-competitive thing, is that Apple's service there is not really a service at all. It's completely unreasonable. So the competition thing kind of falls flat on its face. In addition to that, there are certain things that an independent repair shop can do that Apple will not do. For example, data recovery. Apple will not do data recovery from your device. If your MacBook Pro or your iPhone is liquid damaged and you have got mission critical data on there, they won't save that for you. So the anti-competitive issue is kind of falls flat on its face there, because there are certain areas where we're not competing with Apple because Apple don't provide that service. And I include an inordinate quote as part of that issue. If you're quoting someone £1 million for a job that an independent shop can do for, say, £100, you don't provide a service there at all. Your inordinate quote of £1 million or whatever is basically code for you saying, I don't want to do this, go and buy another one. Because that's what you do when you have a customer that you don't want to do the job for. You either say, you either make up some reason why you can't do it, or you price them out of the job. And if they actually agree to pay your ridiculous quote, then at that point, well, yeah, it's worthwhile because you're getting paid a ridiculous amount of money for it. So, yeah. So the next thing, obviously, is the intellectual property issue. This one is obviously a little bit debatable, because it's one thing to sell a product. If you sell an iPhone to someone, they own that phone. It becomes their property. They have bought an example of that device, and they now own it as a material device. However, they don't own all of the engineering and the design and the art that went into it. That is fair, because if you said that they then owned all of that, that would also imply that they could then make copies of it because they own all the designs for it. So why should they not be able to make copies of it? So that's a whole legal minefield. However, the thing is that you can provide certain resources, like, for example, the schematics for MacBook Pros that you've seen on a couple of my videos and on people like Lewis Rossman's channel. Those schematics, you can't just make a MacBook from that. Yes, I have all the circuit diagrams, but as an independent repair shop, I don't have the means to manufacture a MacBook Pro. You need fabrication facilities to make all of the circuit boards and the PCBs. And even though I have the circuit diagram and I have the board layout, I don't have the design of where all the traces go and stuff like that. It is possible to provide the resources to repair without revealing the industry secrets of the device itself. That much is clear. So at that point, the intellectual property thing kind of falls flat on its face as well. So at this point, you can quickly see that there is a very reasonable reason to say, yeah, you should be able to provide the means to repair. However, the point where we start getting to a sticking issue now is where you say that now there is legislation forcing people to do this. So what if I made something? What if I, as a small person, if I designed a product and sold it in my shop, and the law suddenly turned around and said, you have to provide all of the resources that you require to make it. Firstly, my device may be less complicated, so much easier for someone to copy if they had the repair schematics, as I would call it. And in addition to that, suddenly it's like, we're all very pro little guy, when it's us versus the man versus a big corporation. But as soon as you scale it down to a small company, or what about like, for example, a Kickstarter thing? It's an electronic device that is being mass produced, but it's still made by a small company. Does that count? So it's like, now you have to start drawing lines in the sand. How big does a company and a product have to be before it falls under this legislation? So things start getting messy. So the bottom line is that I don't know what the solution is, which is why I'm not generally that vocal about the right to repair, because the issue is that I can very much understand the reasons against it as well. But if we put that aside, because I don't really have a solution, that's just my 2 pence and my perception of the issue, I think that the right to repair bill and the problem that it's trying to fix is the symptom of an underlying issue. And this is really important in diagnostics, is you don't fix symptoms. When a computer comes into my shop with a blue screen error, I don't even read the blue screen error, because the blue screen error is always a red herring. It's not relevant. The blue screen error is the symptom of an underlying cause. For example, a blue screen error that is different every time the computer crashes is the symptom of memory failure. The blue screen is just simply the program having a hissy fit and operating in a manner other than directed. However, this was caused by faulty memory. Now, if you actually drill into the blue screen error and go into the error code and the dump file and stuff like that, you'll get garbage because it was caused by something completely different. So this is the same deal here. The right to repair and such like is the symptom of an underlying cause, and the underlying cause is the free market not working as intended. So now we're talking about capitalism and stuff like that. Now, as with all systems of economy and of society, most of them, socialism, capitalism, the communism, and all the rest of it like that, they all seem to work on paper and on a small scale. But the problems develop when it gets big and when margins of error suddenly become big factors and big chunks of people. Like, for example, if you have a system where 1 in 100 people loses the system, that's a fairly reasonable margin of error. But when you're dealing with a country that has 1 billion people in it, suddenly your margin of error counts for a huge chunk of people. And that 1% margin of error is no longer acceptable. This is why loads of stuff and loads of ideas seem really good on paper, but by the time they hit mainstream, per se, suddenly it doesn't work anymore. And this is also why, people look at films and books and go, oh, why can't we just go and live like the hobbits? They seem to have it good. Yeah, it works because it's a very small society. If you scale that up to the size that we have in the real world, everything breaks spectacularly. And the same thing goes for capitalism. Capitalism has worked pretty well for us so far, but there's plenty of ways where capitalism gets really ugly, especially in profit motive. Now, for example, during the right to repair, when they were lobbying for this in Nebraska, one of the senators who was really going to town with the devil's advocate, he said to one of the pro lobbyists, he said, "What is the purpose of a business if not to make money?" Now, firstly, this was a loaded question because he provided the answer to the question he was asking, which was really unfair, and it caught the lobbyist off guard. And the lobbyist wasn't sure what to do about this, because when you say, what is the purpose of a business if not to make money, you're just like, well, yeah, we're in business to make money. We all accept that. Now, what he needed to say, the correct response to that question was that the purpose of a business is to make enough money. That is the thing. That is the key word here, enough. Because the problem with capitalism as a whole is that there's no limits to it. If you say that my objective is to make money, that is implying my objective is to make money no matter the cost, no matter what price. if one option is make money and the other option is not make money, then I must select make money. And the issue is that that's where this arises, is that if Apple makes money by people dropping and breaking their iPhones and then buying new ones, then they have an incentive and a profit motive to not fix their phones and to not make those phones repairable. That is the issue there. And if a country like America, which is obviously very, very much capitalist to the core, all about free market, one man in his business kind of thing. If a country like America passes legislation that requires a company to do something that might compromise their revenue, their income, then that seems very un-American per se. So the guy said, what is the purpose of business if not to make money? My response to that is, the purpose of the business is to make enough money. The purpose of the business is to make enough money to pay its employers a decent wage and a decent living, and to secure the future of the business. Now, if your company is making billions in profits, so I'm talking after expenses, after you've paid all your people, after you've secured the future of your business, you're still making billions of dollars or whatever, you have made enough money. You don't need to make more money here. At that point, I would argue that you can afford to say, yeah, we'll help you out on this one. Yeah, that seems fair. It seems fair of us to be a bro in this situation because we've seen, we're looked after, we're going to be fine kind of thing. We're going to bring out a new one and people will buy the new one because they want the new one, not because they broke their old one. So my counter to that is the key word here is enough. We've made enough money. So that is one of the issues there. Now, the other issue of why I say this is a symptom of an underlying cause is the fact that, obviously, again, people say, okay, well, if a company is being an asshole, if a company is doing bad things, the free market will fix that. The free market is self-regulating. If someone is breaking the rules, if someone is making a bad product, if someone is screwing over the customer, then the market will go somewhere else. They will take their business elsewhere. Now, in terms of small business, most of the time this works. As an independent repair shop, if I have a falling out with a customer, it is very unlikely that I'll see that customer again. They're going to go to another computer repair shop, and that's fine with me. If we didn't get along, we didn't get along, so be it. I do my very best. However, the problem is that the consumer, when it comes to big companies, is a complete idiot. Case in point, I had a customer come into my shop the other day with a couple of laptops for recycling. So a customer comes in, they put two HP laptops on the counter. They're both identical, except one of them is a generation newer. They're standard HP G6 15-inch laptops. They're both in red. They said, we got the first one and then it broke, so we bought another one. This one is just broken, so we've bought another one. I was like, do you think perhaps it's time to buy a different product? Because you've got two broken ones that you've just put on my counter that you're giving to me to recycle, and you've gone and bought another one after two of them broke. And this is not the first time I've had this conversation with a customer either. A long time ago, I had someone come in with a big A3 Epson printer that we had to go at fixing. Pro tip, don't try and fix printers. Anyway, and he said, yeah, this is the third one I've had. And I said, do you think perhaps it's time to buy a different printer or even a different brand? And he was like, I didn't think of it really. And the same happened with the customer with the HP laptops. They were just like, oh, I didn't think of that. And I'm like, you bought a product that broke on you twice in a row and then you bought another one. And I don't mean that this broke because you dropped it. Like, if you drop your iPhone onto the pavement and it breaks, that's not the iPhone's fault. That was your fault because you dropped it. However, if a product fails because of poor reliability or a manufacturing defect or something like that, that's not your fault. That's it being a bad product. And as I say, I've had numerous customers who just don't seem to understand that. Again, for me, when a pair of my headphones breaks, I'll look at it and I'll go, man, that was, this was a long time coming. That was inevitably going to break. And if I buy another pair of these headphones, they are going to break in exactly the same way because of a design flaw. So I buy a different brand of headphones or a different model. and I look at it and I go, this one doesn't have the same design. This one is designed differently and is clearly stronger. I will buy this one instead because I don't think it's going to break. However, likewise, for example, the previous pair of headphones I had were a pair of Creatives, but the problem is that I felt that they had a small battery that didn't last very long. It's a wireless headset, and also it didn't have a very good microphone on it. So I bought a pair of Corsair headphones that were, again, wireless headset with the mic. It had a better microphone on it, and they were over-ear ones. So I thought these will be more comfortable, and because they're over-ear headphones, they'll be bigger and have a bigger battery, so they'll last longer. They don't. They have the same battery life as my old ones, and the microphone is okay. It's good enough. However, again, when those break, I'm going to buy a different pair. I won't buy the same pair again because I'm like, there were problems with this one. But Joe Public doesn't do this. This is the thing. Joe Public will be like, this is the brand I know. HP is the brand I know. It's what I always buy, so I will always buy HP. I'm not going to risk anything else. And this is an issue. People just buy the same thing time and time again. So the free market, on paper, in theory, it should be self-regulating, but in reality it isn't. So the issue is, and the same thing goes in other places, where you say to people, oh, the society should be self-regulating, society should change itself, but it just doesn't, because individuals are smart and intelligent, but Joe Public, the masses, are idiots, and they will just make the same mistake time and time and time again. And so they need to be pushed in a particular direction. They need a nudge in the right direction. And this is why certain laws need to be brought into society. And this is why, for example, the issues of freedom of speech are such a big deal. Because, for example, if you say, oh, this is offensive, that shouldn't be allowed, obviously the first thing is you say, okay, well, no, freedom of speech dictates that anything is okay. And society will just simply reject someone for being an asshole. But the problem is it doesn't really, and occasionally you need some laws and some legislation to say, no, we're drawing a line here. This is not okay. We are making this illegal because this is not okay, and we are making it illegal as a demonstration of our commitment to saying this is not okay, and we are going to change society. For example, persecution of other people is not okay. That's not freedom of speech. So you make that illegal. It's illegal to persecute another person, via verbal abuse or whatever, hate speech or whatever, Obviously, this is another discussion, but you get the idea. You see my point of what I'm talking about here. So moving back to the topic, it's the same issue with the free market and the large corporations with their things. If you make it so it is law for them to make available the means to fix their devices, we push society in a direction of fixing things. We make it so it is normal for things to be fixable. Whereas at the moment, the public are very much of the opinion that things aren't fixable. Like when I fix a laptop a lot of the time, the customer is like, you're a wizard. And I'm like, no, that's just electronics. That's just me putting the right thing in the right place. This was not magic. This was just because I took it apart, understood how it worked, and now I can put yours back together again. Society very much has this thing of sort of, I guess I'm going to have to buy a new one. It's like, no, we'll fix it. And if we make something like the right to repair law, if you make that legislation legally binding so people have to make something fixable, we push society in a direction where they are accustomed to things being fixable, and something that is not fixable becomes socially unacceptable. So if Apple continue with this thing where their phones are just completely unfixable, then people will be like, no, I'm not going to buy an Apple anymore because you can't fix it. If I drop it, I'm going to have to pay $1,000 for a new one. Whereas if I buy the Huawei, if I buy the HTC, then the parts are available to fix that. I can go to the guy down the road with the shop and he'll fix my phone for me, and it'll be an awful lot cheaper than buying a new one. So we need to push society in that direction. Okay, so I'm running out of time here, so I'm just going to wrap up with a couple more examples of my point. So the point of my whole video here is that the right to repair, I do support it, but I believe that the requirement or the reason why we feel we need a right to repair is the symptom of the customers being idiots. It's the symptom of Joe Public being morons. Because if you take the iPhone, for example, the iPhone optional extras are additional storage, and they cost hundreds of pounds for additional storage. Like if you get the 16 gig, it's not that expensive. If you get the 32, the 64, or like, I don't know if they do 128 at the moment, but if you get those ones, it can cost hundreds of pounds more. Whereas any Android phone worth its salt, you buy a £10 SD card that has 64 gigs of storage. £10! And Apple will charge you like £200 or whatever for that optional extra. So why does anyone buy it? Why does anyone pay £200 for something that would cost you £10 on the other device? The free market, it's supposed to self-regulate, but it doesn't. And if we take Apple's new laptops, you know, the late 2016 MacBook Pro and the 2015 MacBook Retina. So the MacBook Retina, the stupid 13-inch, £1,000 netbook with a netbook CPU in it and one USB-C port. You can't plug a flash drive into it. Who buys that? You can't plug anything into it. So you look at this and you're just like, this is insane. But people buy it. So these senators in Nebraska are like sort of free market capitalism and stuff like that. And it's just like, but people don't. You tell me that the free market will self-regulate, and if the product is bad, people will stop buying it. But they don't. And the issue is that the people don't realise that there are alternatives. They don't realise that stuff should be repairable. So that is my bottom line here, is that I'm not saying that you should make something law because that is what is morally just or something like that. However, something needs to be done to push society into the correct direction, to make them aware that something is possible. Society does not believe that stuff can be fixed. We need to push them in a direction that makes them believe and makes them used to stuff being fixable. So when someone comes out with no, I'm sorry, sir, that's going to be £800 for something that I can do with a toothbrush, some window cleaner, and a screwdriver. When someone charges, £800 for what I can do with that equipment, no, that is not acceptable. That is why the right to repair is not perfect, but we need something along those lines. It's the symptom of an underlying cause. That's it. That's the end of my rant. I'm sorry this went on for half an hour. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you all soon. Goodbye.